Greetings, everybody. My name is Pastor Raymond Bideau. For those that may not know me, we serve as lead captain for Islander Evangelistic Ministries. And I want to address, I would like to address just for a few moments here on this video some concerns that we have with our ministry selling vessels that are currently on heavy weight, modified anchors, fabricated anchors, if you please, located on the Steinhatchee River. Matter of fact, they've been there for over 20 years, some years. Since the hurricane, about 6-7 weeks ago, it occurred in Steinhatchee. We have folks that live on land and business owners that have brought much concern up before the county commissioners in Taylor and Dixie County both in regards to the sailboats that are anchored on the Steinhatchee River. So that's my purpose of making this little video, to address that just for a few moments here. First of all, let me say a little something about Islander Evangelistic Ministries International. My family and I lived in Haiti, in Ile La Vache, which is off the south coast of Haiti, for many years. We lived there full time as missionaries. My children all grew up speaking French Creole. And then even now, we still are involved in that ministry. We have 38 years that we've been involved in ministry there. We have 15 churches. We have 5 to 7 feeding programs every week, depending on income, finances. And then beside all that, we have sailboats in this ministry that we carry humanitarian aid and storm relief to the island of Ile La Vache and Tahiti, to try to help those that don't have the means to help themselves. So it's a humanitarian, not just a spiritual ministry as far as the gospel goes, but also it's a great humanitarian endeavor that we have. Besides Islander Evangelistic Ministries International, we also pastor a church just north of Old Town, Florida, on Route 349, 7 mile north, in McCrabb Independent Baptist Church. We've been there for over a year now, pastoring that old church. And so that's kind of what we do. Most folks around Steinhatchee know us. We've been in and out of there for a lot of years now. For many years, we were on Doug Black's dock over close to Hungry Howie's. We had our mission vessels there on the dock. We leased the dock off of Doug. Of course, Doug Black has been gone for several years now, and they sold out to somebody else. And when they sold out and moved away, we couldn't find a slip at all to accommodate sailboats because of the draft and all. And besides that, the support that we receive and the money that we spend in ministry, we would rather be feeding hungry children than having to lease dock space every month. And so there's a lot of factors that come involved. So we put our mission board, and we got together and we went to a designated anchorage on the Steinhatchee River. I'll touch on that later. And but we put down a lot of weight, 4,000 or 5,000 pound of weight. And I might add this: we used to on the side we did commercial diving, and we actually have been involved in certified commercial state approved moorings. We have moved those in the past as a commercial diver from one location to another, so we are very well knowledgeable and know what those moorings are. And I can tell you that the moorings, the weight that we have put down, exceeds the ones that were state certified. I can tell you that. Now, but let me go on here. So that's what we do as a ministry. We've been there for a lot of years. We maintain our vessels. We take care of them. We inspect our chains, that are attached from the vessel to the bottom of the river. And we have ridden out hurricanes on our vessels at times and on the river. And now, but what I'd like to touch on here before I go any further. I just ordered the latest volume of Admiralty and Maritime Law of the United States of America. I have another copy that's more inclusive than this one. It's a really thick volume. It's on our flagship right now, La Victoria. That's on the Steinhatchee River. But I have this copy here with me, and there's a lot here that I could read and touch on, but I like to read here on page 13 of the current issue of the Admiralty and Maritime Law. This appertains to the federal government, the United States of America. This is volume 2, the second edition here. But here on page 13, it defines modern standards, interpretations of navigable waters, okay? I'd like to read this. The Admiralty jurisdiction of the federal courts extends not only to events on the high seas and territorial seas, but to the inland waters of the United States, so long as they satisfy the requirements of being navigable waters. The interpretation of the term navigable waters of the United States has itself been subject of a number of different federal decisions. It refers to bodies of water that are navigable, in fact, which means waters that are used or capable of being used as waterborne highways for commerce. Those presently sustaining or those capable of sustaining the transportation of goods or passengers by watercraft. Furthermore, in order to qualify as navigable waters of the United States, bodies of water must form in their ordinary condition by themselves or by uniting with other waters a continued highway over which commerce is or may be carried on with other states or foreign countries in the customary modes in which such commerce is conducted by water. Okay? Generally, inland waters of the United States is navigable if it is capable of supporting maritime commerce. It runs through 2 states or empties into the sea. Did y'all get that? Or empties into the sea. It is presently sustaining maritime commerce. Note that it is sufficient that the body of water be a link in the highway of interstate commerce. In other words, if the body of water sustaining maritime commerce runs into another body of water sustaining maritime commerce, which runs between 2 states, Admiralty jurisdiction applies. And again, or empties into the sea. If it connects with the sea, it's considered inland waters that comes under federal jurisdiction. So basically, it comes under the United States Coast Guard. Now, we are aware of the fact that the state has arrangements and agreements with the federal government when it comes to inland waters, even coastal waters, as far as that goes. That's the reason why the FWC are out enforcing laws that appertains to coastal and inland waters. The Steinhatchee River is a designated anchorage. It's on all the charts, and it has been for decades. The Steinhatchee River has been a place of refuge from storms. It's been a place where, yes, people have lived on their vessels on the Steinhatchee River, whether it be a sailboat, a commercial fishing vessel, whatever, a shrimp boat, sponge boat, whatever the case would be. The Steinhatchee River has been a place where many liveaboards have lived on board their vessels. Now, I recently have heard this and I've heard it in time past, but I hear some business owners and different ones make acclamation, oh, well, you're only supposed to come in for 30 days or 60 days or whatever the case would be, and then you have to leave. These people need to read and study their history just a little bit, because that's not the case at all. Friends, the fact that we have this freedom and this liberty to be able to live aboard a vessel or a boat on an inland water, a harbor, a bayou, a river, whatever the case would be, that's one of the last freedoms and liberties that we have in this United States of America. Many of our land laws are based upon admiralty and maritime law. And anybody that's had any association with paralegal or as an attorney that knows a little bit, has a little bit of conception or concept of the law of the land, you're very much aware that many of our land laws are taken from admiralty and maritime law. This mentality that to remove sailboats, to remove people that's living on their boats from inland waters, that's a socialist mentality. It is not American. That's just plainly spoken. My friends, this hadn't ought to be. We lived in Horseshoe Beach between going in and out of Haiti and in Steinhatchee. We've seen the change. We've seen the transformation. We've seen local fishing villages or towns, if you please, and we've seen the, what would I say, modernism come in, perhaps. Some have other names for it. And many of the local people that's lived for decades there, now living on the outskirts, and they've been they've been subject to laws and statutes and things that are it's just on the borderline of social communism, if you please. We've lived in socialist communist countries. I tell folks all the time, if you think that's a good way of government, you ought to go and live in Cuba for a while, away from the tourist areas. Go inland and live among the people. You may have a change of mind. We've spent time there in Cuba, where the real people live. They're so depressed. They don't even realize it. Because they don't know anything else. We don't need that coming to the United States. We don't need that here in Steinhatchee. We don't need that in the United States of America. Down in South Florida, we see a lot of these problems. You got city and county ordinances that they impose on people and trying to run folks out. Now I want to touch just a little bit on the hurricane. Friends, it was a Category 4 hurricane. When it made landfall, it was a Cat 3. And what in the world will stand up to that magnitude of a storm? Not a lot. And so to blame people living on their vessels, their sailboats, how absurd is that? I'm also aware of the fact that when that storm surge came, one of the very first, if not the first thing to break loose was about a 75-foot dock that was up above where the sailboats were anchored, and in a designated anchorage, by the way. It came down the river. It slammed into some other vessels, broke them loose. Actually, they all ended up piling up on our flagship, La Victoria. Nothing broke. The chain and the mooring, it did drag for a ways, and then it grabbed. And all that flotilla that you see on that famous video where they're all going underneath the Steinhatchee Bridge, they came off of our flagship. They came off of it and they went underneath that. Most of them were destroyed. Some of them ended up in the back of the landings down the river, and I'm aware of all that. Well, since then, we've got our vessel back up on anchorage again. We've put down a lot of weight. And now I'll be the first to confess and to verify the fact that we understand there have been those on the river that does not and have not maintained their vessels. I understand that. But here's the thing. There's already been statutes put in writing already that defines derelict vessels. One of the statutes, I don't have it in front of me right now, But one of the statutes declares that a vessel has to be navigable. It has to be able to move from point A to point B, whether it be under engine propulsion or under sail, but he has to be able to move. If a vessel doesn't have some power, they have 30 days to resolve that problem, or it is dubbed as a derelict vessel. Has to be removed. It's already in the statutes. It's already there. Now, I understand some of these statutes, if I understand correctly, they are not conclusive. But nevertheless, there are statutes that just, if they were just enforced. Another issue that we've heard is sewage, the subject of sewage. Well, from what I understand, from what I'm told, those that do live on their vessel, they are disposing of their sewage properly. They're not dumping it into the river. They're putting it in a bag, in a bucket, and they're carrying it to shore and properly disposing of it. Now, I want to talk about our 2 mission vessels that are located on the Steinhatchee River in the designated anchorage, by the way. They have huge holding tanks, fore and aft. We don't use those. We don't live aboard our vessels. We go back and forth. We check on them all the time. We maintain them. Sometimes we might go and spend the night, maybe 2 nights, but for the most part, we do not live on those vessels. It would take months to fill up those holding tanks, believe me. We have a very huge holding tank on the Gulf Star 50 and also on the Morgan 41. And if they do get full, we just simply go way offshore and we pump them out. It's done. It's the same thing that the commercial fishing vessels and other commercial vessels do. I might add, reading the laws, this ain't statutes, these are laws here, federal laws, from the Admiralty and Maritime Law of the United States of America. Now, having read that here previously, we have commercial fishing vessels. Occasionally, we have commercial sponge harvesting vessels that come in, barges, and I suppose the list could go on. So there's, without any question, if you have any question whether the Steinhatchee River is a federal inland waterway, you shouldn't anymore because it's very clearly stated here. Technically, well, I shouldn't even say technically, lawfully, the United States Coast Guard have the supreme authority over the inland waterways. I understand they have an arrangement, they have an agreement with state, which comes under the FWC. So basically, the only thing required is the fact that a vessel on anchor has an anchor light that can be seen from all directions and from a good distance. They have to be so many feet away from a commercial marina or a business. But other than that, the vessel owner should be responsible to maintain the fact that he has proper mooring or anchorage or weight down to hold his vessel. If a storm comes, if he's able to relocate to another area to avoid the storm, that's a good thing. If he's not able, then he needs to be able to secure that vessel the best that he possibly can to avoid it being broke loose or to go astray in the river. We've been through hurricanes in the islands. There's ways to prepare for these hurricanes when they come. I know in the islands we've been able to tie off to the mangroves and get into an area the best that we could between the mountains or what have you, and tie off to the mangroves and use our anchor lines and all that, and we've came through some pretty serious hurricanes like that. And I know in Steinhatchee we don't have those mountains like we have in the islands where we were, but yet, and where we are at times rather, but yet we have woods, we have trees. There are ways to secure the vessel. Now, it seems like the sailboats have been blamed for a lot of the damage that was incurred. Most of the damage that was incurred in the hurricane was because of the storm surge. And nobody can deny that. The storm surge came in, I understand it was 13 feet above normal high tide. A lot of the pilings that were holding the docks in place. The docks rose up higher than the pilings, and of course, then they went free. That was the case of most of them. It wasn't sailboats slamming into them. It was the storm surge. And then on another note, all these docks broke loose. All you got to do is make a trip up and down the Steinhatchee River, even right now. Sadly and unfortunately, many of the docks are gone, but it's not because of the sailboats. I might add this: I was there as eyewitness. There were fishing vessels, there were sport boats, and many docks, garbage dumpsters. I don't even know where to stop with this, but all this was rushing down the river during that storm surge. I was right there. I seen it with my own eyes. So I think it's absurd, and it's certainly not fair and just to be blaming the sailboats for everything. If the FWC will just enforce the statutes that are already written, I don't see whether there's any problem in the future. And then I like something that was brought out in the workshop in Taylor County here last month. It was one of the authorities made declaration that the sailboats that went underneath the bridge, how they damaged the bridge and all that. Listen, and I like what one sailor got up and said that had much experience in commercial engineering. He got up and said this, and it was a good point. He said, there's no way that the tensile strength of a mast, aluminum mast on a sailboat, should hardly even make much more than a scratch on a bridge of that magnitude, with the cement and bunkments and all and the heavy iron I-beams and things like that. That's really a ridiculous assertion. Really, it is. We're not talking about a commercial ship we're talking about a sailboat, small sailboats. And most of these sailboats, as a matter of fact, I think every single one of them that went underneath the bridge was actually step-on masts. In other words, the mast set on top of the deck of the boat or the vessel, and it's shrouds or cables that keep them in place, the forestay, the backstay, and the shrouds. So there's no way. Now, a larger sailboat usually will have a mast that goes through the deck and down into the keel. And of course, they're a little bit more sturdy and stable. But from what we gathered, from what we could tell from observation, all the vessels that passed underneath the bridge were smaller sailboats and vessels that had the mast stepped on top. So it really wouldn't took a great deal to knock them down. Matter of fact, in that video, if you've seen it, it just like snap, 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 snap. They just, just went down like they were nothing. And so I just feel like that there needs to be fairness in this situation. We've been to 2 workshops already in Taylor County. We're fixing to be at one in Dixie this week. It has a defense and a voice, one of the voices, I would say, on behalf of one of the great freedoms that we have in this country of ours, in this United States of America, that anybody that would like can own a vessel, a sailboat, or a power vessel. You can live on that boat, if you please. You can travel freely from one harbor to another, from one country to another. For these people to make to make statements, that's absurd, socialistic statements that, well, the river was never meant for anybody to be living on a boat. That's absurd. These individuals need to be studying history just a little bit, from the Indians, to pioneers, adventurers, the pirates, our southern soldiers back in that day. All these people have frequented that river, and many has lived on that water. So I just hope that somebody have ears to hear. And again, the derelict vessels, the ones that have been derelict, yes, if we would just enforce the statutes that are already in writ, they shouldn't be a problem. It should not be a problem. And that should appertain not only to the sailboats, to the commercial fishing boats, to the sport boats, and to people that own dock and property along the riverfront. Their dock should be, they should be properly installed. So there you go. It's not just the sailboats. If we're going to be fair about this, and I want to add this about the sewage, by the way. I touched on this once already, but we used to do a lot of diving on that river. And we had divers that worked for us. We done a lot of underwater work there on that river for several years. And I might add this, when you get up past the bridge, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't know how it is nowadays, but used to, they were PVC running straight from certain residents, and not only that, certain commercial properties that went right directly into the river. Not to mention the fact, it hadn't been, I think, maybe a couple of years ago, that the city of Steinhatchee had a sewage break, and how many hundreds of thousands of gallons of sewage, raw sewage, went into the river during that time. I mean, seriously, let's get in common sense mode here. Let's be fair about some things. It has a ministry. We have 2 vessels there. We have a lot of serious weight down. And I might add this in all fairness. A couple of the other liveaboards, I know for a fact they have put down some real serious weight down to hold their vessels since after the hurricane. And they went to a lot of effort to secure their vessels. I was there, I've seen it, and been part of that, so I know what I'm talking about. So I think it's very unfair and unjust to blame the sailboats for all the problems from the hurricane. And it's not right, it's not fair, and somebody needs to speak up. And as long as we have a voice, and we're going to cry out against this tyranny, this nonsense from certain business owners and others, and only God knows the reason they're doing it. I don't know, but nevertheless, we've said what we have to say. And so I pray that some of you have had ear to hear. Let's be fair about some things and stand for the right. I'll tell you, there are those that would love to take what freedoms we have left in this country away from us. And I think we need to take a stand against such as that. Anyway, God bless you. Thank you for listening if you have. And we'll talk to you next time around.